Okay, I'm ready. I've got my book of spells. You see the secret sigil on the front? Yes, it's filled with well, let's see, ancient scribbles, right? So, I've got my book of spells. I've got ooh, magic rocks, right? You need you for what we're doing tonight. You need magic rocks and actually a code. With the code of what these are. This seems to be I think it must be a chrysocolla. Yeah. Oh, and here let's see. We have um oh, amethyst. I love amethyst because amethyst is of course my birthstone, so I always recognize that amethyst. Very good, very good. If you have amethyst jewelry, it helps you stay sober, which we may need. um, and let's see. Oh, maybe some fool's gold. And oh, it's beautiful. And this one. I don't have my crystal ball out, but if just in case we need an orb, we can do in the orb. And of course, I have my familiar. It's so fluffy. Okay, because I'll just sit here. Do you remember how bad I was last week? I have my baby dragon too, right? So we're ready. We're ready to do some magic. Welcome to the Mosaic Arc. Okay, we're ready. We're ready. Teach us
What do you want to learn?
magic. We're gonna learn magic.
Oh, I stay
Like,
away from that stuff. It's
no,
dangerous.
oh, no, magic. We want to learn magic. Come on, it's like we've got card. I will got cards somewhere. Here, we got cards here, right? We can tell fortunes. We got familiar animals. We got magic rocks. We got
Mm.
a mystical sigil spell book. Aren't you going to teach us?
Is it a grand grimoire?
Probably. I mean, magic sells. We have in the neighborhood a new Barnes and Noble. Ooh.
Nice. I
Ooh.
love bookstores.
Well, we haven't had a Barnes. Well, we used to have. I think we used to have a Borders for a while, and it closed a long time ago. It's a clothing shop now at that location, and in the spot where the Barnes and Nobles is now, there had been grocery stores. The last one was Treasure Island, so the bookstore has replaced the Pirates, sort of. And I went to the Barnes and Noble, which is on the site of Treasure Island, this past week, and I found what was I reading last week? Oh dear, what I've now totally forgotten. I found a book. It's mini books. There were mini books there. What did I read this? Oh yes, the History of Pirates. That fits.
Oh.
I got
Nice.
I got a Colin Woodard's book about pirates from Treasure Island. No, Barnes and Noble. And the and
That's a
the
good summer read.
well, it took me it was just a weekend read. I learned. I now know all of the dreary facts about Blackbeard, who actually was named Edward Thatch, probably, although we don't really know his name. And
Edward Teach.
Well, Thatch. See, there's controversy. But he apparently, according to the history, actually really did set his beard on fire with little squibs and stuff. So it's like he was very tall. He had big bushy beard, and when he jumped out at people in South Carolina, apparently, it was surrounded with smoke.
He wanted to make a big entrance.
He did. Unfortunately, I don't think he practiced fighting very much because the smoky aura tended to warn people off, and he was in fact beheaded in what reads like a fairly small fight by the governor of Virginia, who came down to South Carolina out of his jurisdiction.
That's right.
To get he was.
Well, that's appropriate because Edward Teach didn't have any jurisdiction either, so he thought.
I think the governor got in a little trouble for doing that. Anyway, amongst the books, we can always talk more about pirates, right? It's like here's my parrot substitute. This, of course, also inspired me to watch Disney's Treasure Island, and therefore now I know where Jeffrey Rush gets his characterization for Captain Barbarossa, because it's from
that's true.
Robert Newton's. It's from Robert Newton's portrayal of Long John Silver in Disney's Treasure Island, like straight down to the rolling eyes and the R and everything like that. But Newton Silver had a parrot, not a monkey. So I have a dragon.
Okay.
I have a dragon.
He had a parrot. Oh,
there we go.
Yes, perfect.
This is not going to stay on. I can't. I'm not getting around to the point here, which is amongst the books of literature and history and cooking and travel and such, there was a giant section on New Age spirituality back in the back, right?
Wow.
Well, the thing is, being of a certain age, being a woman of a certain age, and therefore a Gen Xer who grew up with when all those occult bookshops were hanging out around.
Yeah, I'm surprised they're still around.
Well, they don't need to be. They're in the Barnes and Noble now.
Yeah.
This is my point. Right. Back when I was in college in the 80s, the occult section of the Barnes and Noble bookstore was its own bookstore off campus, right, where Marianne Williamson, CEO presidential candidacy fame some years ago, used to shop. And in there was the New Age spirituality section, and it included crystals and those crystals I got actually with this shipment of Valentine chocolates. So it's made it mainstream in chocolate marketing as well. That if you wanted I don't know, tarot cards or something like that, you had to go to your occult bookshop in the repurposed house off campus. Now, apparently, you just have to go to the mainstream bookseller and look in the back. And there is an entire bookcase full of nothing but tarot cards.
Nothing but tarot cards.
Nothing
Wow.
but tarot cards. There were more kinds of tarot cards than I, of course, being a student of symbolism, had many decks of tarot cards, still have them. And some of them are medieval. I need to study them. This was, and I do remember from the 80s, there were already many sort of themed tarot cards. Like, for example, the one from the Jane Seymour character in one of the Bonds, when she's
Live and Let Die.
Yes, when she's what's her name?
What's the character's name?
Yeah, the character's name.
I can't remember
Mystic
the character's
or
name.
Amber, I don't know, something like that. Maybe somebody will think of it.
I haven't seen it in a while. It's a good one.
I was doing my spy studies over the winter, so I've seen all of these. All of these things are coming together: the pirates, the spies, the occult bookstores,
The Caribbean.
Right, because her tarot was like the voodoo tarot or something that she was. She was supposed to be based out of New Orleans, and then they were down in the islands. Yeah, so all of this is coming together. But now the Barnes and Noble, which is mainstream standard bookstore, in addition to the entire bookcase of tarot cards, which did impress me. That was and the thing is, they have to make a special bookcase for the tarot cards, because the tarot cards are a little, right? So instead of being spaced at book height as shelves usually are. These are like specially, segmented so that the card decks all fit in there. An entire shelf. Trust me, it was there. There's also obviously an entire shelf full of Harry Potter stuff, merchandise and books and reeditions and such.
But are they right next to each other near the occult stuff?
No, they don't need to. This is my point, because you might think that the witchcraft is isolated into the Harry Potter section and the tarot card section. But of course, if you read carefully, as we do when we study these patterns and symbolisms throughout, the entire bookstore is witchcraft.
The entire bookstore. Okay, give me an example of somebody wouldn't think was witchcraft that you said, that's fate.
She had me watching Mad Max Fury Road. We're going to end up talking about that. Ooh, we should do an episode on that.
Movie.
Okay,
we should.
My proof is in the books, because one, we have been studying, as we do, media, of course, and therefore we in the Dragon Common Room or Mosaic Arc, whichever we birth in the Dragon Common Room, we sail as the Mosaic Arc, that books themselves have a particular kind of quality of transport, right? And so I'd say the entire store is, because it's all promising to take you into some kind of illusory space. All of it. I mean, do I need to say more? Really?
No, I get it. But,
all right.
But I've been talking to you for a long time.
Well, okay. So maybe for our audience, I need to say more. Although you guys already know us. If you're here, you probably already heard some of this many times. I mean, I'm looking at things like, and these are some of these things, because we haven't had a mainstream bookstore in the neighborhood in a while. The only time I've seen the Barnes & Noble in the last decade probably is when I visit my mom in Texas. And of course there, I couldn't find the Harry Potter book section because it was an entire aisle, and my I didn't look up high enough, right? As it were, I was looking at particular books rather than an entire shelf full of wands and toys and spell books and such. But the sort of vibe of the entire space is occult, because there's gifts for readers, right? Books will take you places. There's the cooking. Ooh, well, that's obviously spices and spells. Travel, which is, imagine, you get on your magic carpet and fly around the world to all these exotic locations. All of it. It's why, of course, J.K. Rowling is immensely wealthy. She was right about the way in which people wanted that kind of access to this imaginary world that you could get to through books, and it's all there. So here we are. We hear you've written a book.
Booklet.
Oh, show everybody, guys, spoiler alert, this is the book launch video. Woo! Tell us about it.
You can use it as a bookmark when you're done reading it.
Well, but riff through it. It's poetry. Poetry, unlike books on the medieval devotion to the Virgin Mary, is supposed to be slim, right? You have much more street cred as an author if you publish a slim volume of verses than anything else. Trust me. Fat books of fantasy, no. Slim volumes of verses, yes.
That's funny. It's interesting. I want to write fat books of fantasy or at least supernatural stuff.
I'm telling you, slim volume verses get you a lot more like literary cred. So
okay, well, I'll believe you.
She's just not buying it.
It has to be good.
Trust me. Okay, so we've published a slim volume of verses called Wyrd Poetry by KJ Crilly. There it is. Everybody buy it, and you really should buy it, because it's beautifully formatted and laid out for your reading pleasure, and physical books are going to be in prime demand in the coming times when the internet loses its memory and exists only in the present. So if you want to preserve the world in truth and in physical reality, buy the book. So
there is something that does kind of feel magical about physical books. As you just described them, they're old advertisements that I remember as a kid trying to get kids to read during the summer, right? Books can take you places. Books can, take you to these wonderful, worlds, and because they were trying to encourage us to read. But
They're pushers, aren't they?
they're pushers, they're book pushers.
They're book pushers.
Yeah, you can read on the internet. I do it daily. It's just not the same, and I couldn't say why. And I'm not just saying this because I couldn't figure out how to format our ebook. We will figure that out later on in the summer.
Buy the physical book. We're still working on the ebook formatting.
But I actually prefer physical books myself. But there is something magic about them. I mean, they're people like to say they're written on dead trees, but they don't feel dead when they've got stories and words in them. I might be sounding a little goofy right now, but I'm trying to describe what it feels like. Not the one I just wrote, but any book that you just hold in your hand. It's different. It just feels different, like the magic book you just saw in the store, right?
Right. Well, the thing is, it is, and of course, this is a sobering conversation that we've had many times about the effects of media, and the effect of reading a physical book is completely different from the effect of reading a digital.
It is.
It's not. We call it book, right? It's not. It's a digital something that the light that's going into your eyes versus the light that falls on the page, which you need for reading a book.
Right.
The fact of it's glass versus wood. The printing. All McLuhanites, should be nodding along, right?
It's like candlelight versus incandescent or worse, types of fake light. It's ambient light that you're getting off the page instead of directly into your eyeballs. And it does do something different to your brain.
And the turning of the pages, so that as we medievalists understand from the book layouts, that they're meant to, they affect the way in which you remember, and that this being one of the things that we're becoming more and more worried about. And VA found a really great article today that was about how everybody's writing not everybody, the internet writes in the present tense, and it has no past. Yeah. It has no future. It's a permanent present. Partly because none of it exists actually physically. It's just the changing, flickering rocks on your screen, but there's nothing there except for the moment that the screen is being fed with the light. And as opposed with the book, which has physical weight, physical existence, fills up your house. As Sarah says, hi, are you even a reader if you haven't used another book as a bookmark? Indeed. So,
thank you.
I end up with nothing but towers of books, right? And it's like keeping each other open. So definitely. John Abrisi, did you guys publish it? Yes. The Wyrd Poetry is available. You can buy it on Amazon in the usual ways. If you go to our website and click on the Amazon link, it should take you to your home Amazon shop, as it were, so that you can get it wherever you are in the world. So, yes. And you get a beautiful print copy, as Casey is showing.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah. So it's physically available, and as we've learned from shipping Act 2 of Draco Chemicus out, that that things are being shipped all around the world out of our publisher, out of Ingram Sparks distribution. So you should be able to get it wherever you are.
Yes, which is much easier than Act 1. I don't think that was available then, was it? Not everywhere.
Well, some things have changed, right? At our end, and I think at Amazon's end. But right now, you can buy the physical book. Okay, but I that book which you're holding promises weird poetry with the Y.
There we go.
Why is it weird poetry?
So I was thinking about this before we streamed. I'm like, when I'm writing the poems, like
how does it feel to be interviewed? Weird poetry. Okay.
I go to a bunch of different sources for the words that I like to use, and for the development of the short stories, which they are. Like things like the Urban Dictionary. I went to different Wiccan sites to find language they use to describe their own rights. And
who's
then
I'm they here? Who are we talking about?
The Wiccans, right?
The Wiccans. So okay. Is this a book about witches? Is this a book about witches? Could it be?
Yes. Yes, they're prominent
It's a
in
book
in
about
two of the
witches.
stories.
See, I knew it. I knew it. An intimation. Okay.
Yes. So and anyway, I'm going to forget all of the words now. So Wyrd was just an old book that, I mean, it was an old word, Wyrd, which meant kind of strange and supernatural, I think, but it's not its direct definition. It's something like that. So I just thought I would name it that because it was archaic, and that was kind of important to two of the main stories in the book. That it'd be kind of old and new at the same time, kind of like the internet.
Nice.
Or books.
Nice. Okay.
Yeah. So it's weird and strange and a little witchy.
And a little witchy. Just a
little? A little witchy. A lot.
Okay, and it's poetry, which should be a fair giveaway.
Yeah.
Tell us how these poems came about.
Okay, so as practice over the past 5 years, as we've been writing together, so Rachel and I and our other writers in the Dragon Common Room, the other poets, we've written, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, about 5, 6 books. We've published 4. Sorry, we published 4. We've written more than that since we're in the process of publishing them. But I needed to practice, and I wanted to practice specifically in Spenserian stanza because Draco Alchemicus is written in Spenserian stanza. So I would practice, and I love Halloween, and I love old Halloween stories that used to be on TV all the time when I was a kid, and they were easy to find. And I said, I want to write something like that. I want to write something fun, but I also wanted to write it in a way that was descriptive of Christian ideas without hitting people over the head with a Bible, because I don't want to do that. I don't like stories like that, but I did want them to be explicitly Christian. So that's what prompted me to write the kinds of poems I was writing and in the meter I was writing. So they were practice poems that I started challenging myself to do every Halloween. It was just, I wouldn't say it was a random day, but it kind of was. I just liked it. I could have picked Christmas. I could have picked Easter. I picked Halloween. So I started writing around then and posting them in Rachel's Telegram chat, and they eventually made it into the Dragon Common Room, or the Dragon Room. It made it into the newsletter. So
right, over several years. Okay, so John Abrisi's asking, there is a Kindle edition out there, but it's not terrifically well formatted yet. We're wrestling with the formatting. So if you want to read them in pretty like properly formatted.
I'm so frustrated.
But yes, please, Casey and I are trying to learn this on our own, and we've mastered some bits of it and are still struggling with some other bits of it. So, don't judge us.
Does anybody remember? Do you remember Little Britain when computer says no? Right. That's what I went through for like 4 solid days. Every time I tried to format this thing.
And you weren't tempted to try a magic spell on it? Come on. Or an axe.
Yeah, it's okay.
The format. Well, what's funny is we've gotten so used to, being able to format everything and, lickety split, right? And it's actually still, there are skills that are still, challenging, that not everyone has all of the AI skills or all of the tech skills or all of the whatever skills.
That is one of the ideas I had right after I said, I can't do this right now because I'm going on vacation next week, and I'll do it when I get back. But that was one of the ideas I had there. I mean, there is a point where I was trying to format one page, and there was no reason it should have been wrong. I did everything. I followed every instruction on the program I was using, and I said, this is stupid. Let me take one page of this. I stuck it in Grok. It fixed all the programming for me without me even asking. It said, you might like this, and it worked like instantly. So I've heard this is one of the best uses of AI right now is in actually correcting code. So.
Well, since it is, yeah. So they're the media. The medium is the thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So you were writing these. You were writing these as practice stories. They're Halloween themed. They're in the same stanza that we're using for Draco Alchemicus. So it's a storytelling stanza form, which is useful.
Right. So I did do Ottava Rima for one of them because we had also been practicing with that early on,
Right.
and that's the one. This is where poetry gets really interesting. So the type of meter that you use is directly related to the type of story you want to tell when you're writing it. So Ottava Rima is very kind of it's a bit boisterous, it's adventurous. You can almost hear a drum beat when you're speaking it out loud or when you're reading it. And so it was perfect for one of them. The rest of them are in Spenserian stanza because they were mostly what I was practicing, but they were also appropriate to the type of story because Spenser wrote famously the Fairy Queen, and that's what we've been reading, and that's what we've the meter we've been writing in. But it's kind of a very long story. Now these obviously aren't long stories. This is a very thin book, but I mean they were long enough that it was good for that particular meter. So it was a lot of these things I collected, and we just, well, actually, Rachel said, you need to put this in a book. We need to publish it. Okay.
Well, we also found out, though, you got some fan mail, which we should give a shout out for. Yes. Some is some. It's more than none, right? You got some fan mail, and this inspired us to realize that we should make a more permanent version of your poems.
Yeah, I should. Yeah, probably should copyright it or something.
Because
somebody was using it to teach a class on poetry.
Isn't that cool?
And I thought, wow, okay, thanks, thank you. You know, and he had a request of me. He said, "Can you write something for Easter?" I said, "Well, no, that's I'm actually in the middle of another big project right now." It would be really tough to actually switch tracks in my brain to go from what we're writing, Draco Alchemicus, which in my opinion could very well be a Halloween type of book because it's that kind of themes in it. Has a lot of those kinds of themes in it. It's not a Halloween book, but it's kind of in the same, supernatural type, and there's a lot of symbolism in it.
Yeah.
It could be just like that, but it would be really hard to switch gears from that to Easter. Wow. I mean, I'm really, really not that good. So, but maybe someday, but that would be tough. It's a completely different vibe altogether.
Well, to be fair, Draco Alchemicus is going to be 7 acts because it's a Passion Week story.
It is a Passion Week story, you're right. But most of it is not the resurrection.
Well, Sunday, Act 7 gets to be Sunday.
Leading up to it.
Right, the horror leading up to. It's the interest. I mean, that being the interesting thing about writing. I mean, you said that you wanted to write this as as Christian stories, but without beating people over the head with them.
No,
why is that? Why is that a particular concern? What makes it hard writing Christian stories?
It's not hard writing Christian stories. But a lot of the examples I see in popular culture, in film in particular, is things are so explicitly Christian and they're saccharine and predictable, and people have these campaigns to get churches to go see them. It's like, if it were a good film, you wouldn't need to do that. And you're going to turn people off of Christian type of poetry and Christian stories by doing that. Just write good stories. There are a lot of people when the Lord of the Rings movies came out that were absolutely insistent this was not a Christian story, and it absolutely is not a Christian story, and don't say it's a Christian story, and Tolkien didn't say it was a Christian story, and so you shouldn't say it either. And I'm like, but can't you see the influence in the story without being told it's a Christian story? Because they didn't want it to be one, because he was so good at what he did that people could, if they wanted to, dismiss it and say it's not a Christian story, but it is.
Well, okay, so, and this is, of course, the core of our project in the Dragon Common Room, is to write Christian stories.
Yes.
But to do so in a way that opens the mystery out rather than, again, maybe it's like, you and I have talked about this a lot. The team has talked about this a lot over the years, and it's good for me to remind myself this constantly recurs in saying what people think of as Christian stories. Tolkien actually said, well, he told Father Murray that it was a Christian story. Father Murray, I'm doing a lot of research right now I'm finally going to start writing my Tolkien book. Guys, don't hold your breath. It'll take a while. that there's a later letter from Father Murray when he was somewhat older saying, I'm not really sure about, what Tolkien said there. And,
Mm.
which is interesting because I'm absolutely convinced that Tolkien wrote a completely Christian story. There's no way that he could write the world that he did without having a particular kind of understanding of creation and the
Right.
difficulties of the difficulties of life in
Well,
a created world.
and nobody writes in a vacuum of their own experience either. I mean, he was raised in an oratory.
Right.
Those were his influences. There's not going to be a writer who said there's absolutely nothing of me in the story whatsoever. No experience, no memory, no conversation I've ever had, nothing I've ever seen. That's not going to happen. Your brain doesn't work like that. It's going to be in there somewhere.
Well, then that so John is saying Kimberly is right. Most stuff is too explicit, but then again, so is most of the woke general stuff being produced today, which is why
Yes,
Hollywood
it's
is
all,
failing.
yes,
This is a good point.
exactly. Yeah,
Okay, so
that's the same thing. Right.
right, we have the wokeness and we have the Christian, and there's a little debate going on in my Telegram chat about whether or not it's a good or bad thing that Texas has now mandated that some portions of the Bible will be assigned in schools, and you and I had a disagreement on that.
Yeah, I
Whether
don't
we
think
thought
that
this
should be
was a good or
thing to
bad thing, and maybe this is actually the right frame to help think about your stories. It's like, what does it mean to teach Christianity? What does it mean to tell stories from within a Christian frame? And what's the difference, if any?
That's a really good question. 100 years ago, they frequently in public schools in the United States, they used the Bible to teach reading. This was easy to do because most people were of the same religious group. They were in the same churches. In fact, the Catholic schools in the United States started because they were trying to force the Catholic children to read from the King James Bible.
There you go. Not even whether to read scripture, which translation.
Right. Which translation to use. So that's, and people go, oh, well, that's just silly. It's like, but here's the thing, Protestants really believe that we added books to the Bible. They never say we took books out of the Bible. We took books out of the Bible because that sounds problematic, to borrow a woke term. They'll say, you guys, why do you have all these extra books? And it's sincere. They're not being snide. This is what they're being taught. So this was the problem at the very beginning, of the Catholic schools in the United States. They said, if you're going to make kids read from the Bible, it's going to be their own. And that's why they started. So this is going to be an even bigger problem. Texas, for instance, just somebody was trying to start a Muslim colony there, right? An HOA. So what happens when they get so numerous that they take over all the school districts? Well, you have to read the Quran now. You have to. It's part of the curriculum, and we're going to flunk you if you don't. This is what can happen. This is a very bad idea in a religiously pluralistic country. It was a bad idea in a religiously non-plural country, I guess. But we had different denominations, but the same religion, right? So it was a problem even then. It's going to be even worse problem in a plural society.
So
if it's forced, it's compulsory.
Well, I mean, we could go with whether or not the state should have schools, but
we could.
And
that's a good conversation to have too. But they're public schools, they're compulsory, and you don't get a choice.
Well, the reality of that Barnes and Noble that I'm talking about, and the oddity of having all that witchcraft in it, is, of course, the reason that the United States has the valorization of literacy that it does is because of the Protestants wanting allegedly everyone to read the scriptures. And I mean, I've made this argument many times, and I get in trouble every time I say it. But most of our most elite, prestigious, high, Ivy League schools were founded as seminaries, and they were yes. Harvard, Yale, Princeton. They were all founded as seminaries to train the clergy. Even the founding president of the University of Chicago, William Rainey Harper, was a he's a biblical scholar from the previous University of Chicago that failed because they mismanaged their money. The University of Chicago was always secular, but founded by the Baptist John D. Rockefeller. the education that we have in the United States is because the Protestants, the thing is, the Catholics want everybody to be able to pray and read, the books of hours and things like that. So literacy with the printing press goes along with prayer.
Yeah.
And I mean, we should be. There is, of course, a religious section in the Barnes and Noble, right across from the New Age spirituality section.
At least they're separate.
It's in the same little back corner, right? And there's different Bibles and things like that. But the sort of mystique that we have of this shape of object, a codex, is because of the Christians, right? It's not a scroll. It's a bound book that has pages, which will have. I got a picture of Mary in the front here.
That is pretty cool looking.
We'll have the kind of magic and power that we feel like it does. Please buy Kimberly's printed book, because this book form, came with the idea that it carries the Gospels. I mean, that you could hold them up like this in the liturgy and carry them around and such. The codex, it is okay. So now I'm going to cross streams constantly. You got me watching Mad Max Fury Road this week. We must do a stream on that. That was an amazing movie.
Yeah. You can watch it over and over again too.
I'm going to now. Let's do a stream on that next. The tech that this is showing, it's like in Fury Road, the tech is the cars and the V8s, right? And the steering wheel, right. They have to carry the steering wheels around, and the steering wheels are sort of mystical and special. That's what books are to us, right? This is a particular kind of technology that goes with Christianity. It's Christians who made the codex the default format, literally. Like literally. So
right, because before then they would have been scrolls, right?
They would have been scrolls, and
the Torah is still a scroll, isn't it?
Torah is still a scroll.
Not bound.
There was some comment in somebody's chat on Telegram about there was a palimpsest version of St. Paul's letters discovered that was a 6th century manuscript, and someone was saying, "Oh, was this could you find St. Paul's original?" I'm like, not in the codex, because his letters would have been on scrolls, not codices.
Yeah,
the originals.
Yeah, I think people were shocked that in medieval times people would reuse pages. They would take them apart and reuse them, because we've kind of turned them into idols a little bit. I think our books. I mean, we joked about this before in your chat when you said you scribble notes on your books, and
yes,
I said you're a monster. And there was a definite split between people who did this and people who didn't do this.
Yes.
It's something I noticed years ago amongst my friends and people I went to school with. I'm like, oh, no, you don't ever write in a book. And I'm like, what do you mean you don't write in a book?
I write in a book all the time. Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
No, there was something you said there. It was about making them into idols.
Yeah.
Sorry, it's gone. You distracted me because I started wanting to write in the book.
Yeah, sorry.
No, Trat. Now that thread's gone, and this of course, the sort of exercise of reading books is difficult, because in order to read a whole book, you have to keep the argument in your head throughout the whole thing, because the idea is it all hangs together as an argument. And that you need to think that way. Whereas the internet, the scrolling of the internet and the coming and going of the images and the things that are hyperlinked and stuff like that, our mosaic metaphor of the Mosaic Ark is that the hyperlinked quality, right? It's like you're having to put together, and so when Sarah's saying using a book to bookmark another book, and I'm saying, so I have two different modes of, many modes of reading, but one of my modes of reading books is hyperlinked to each other through the footnotes from one to another. And how many books am I reading at any given time? 8, right? Little pieces of this one, another piece of that one. I need a piece of this one. And of course, my own books are the result of that kind of assembling of, like you were saying about looking up the words that you used for your poems. They're putting together pieces from all of these different places. But
I have a drawer full of sticky notepads. I don't write.
Right. No, so now I'm really frustrated that I've lost that thought. It's just scampering away over there.
About idolizing
About
books.
idolizing books. What were we saying just before that?
Well, it was the article somebody had posted about St. Paul's letters, and I said people were really shocked to find out that they reused the pages, that they would just take them out and or cut them out or
Right.
unbind them and reuse them. And I said, and the reason people are shocked is like the conversation we had about do you or do you not write in a book?
Oh, okay. Yes. Well, so the thing is, I mean, there different levels of book made in the Middle Ages, and some are liturgical presentation objects, and some of them are working books. I mean, this is so I have lots of different leather bound books. This one is actually working notes from. Oh, I better have dated it because otherwise I'd have to go through these. It looks like it's starting at 2017, July 2017, and going through. Wow, what was it? Key ideas in Christianity. I was making notes on something that we have books bound like this of commonplace books, and people get really excited by those, particularly if they're unique because they're a particular person's book. So they've copied out all the stuff that they liked, and they might be recipes, they might be stories, they might be this, they might be that. It's whether you're idolizing the technical object of a codex or whether you're idolizing the specific object that's gold and luxury production and things like that. And maybe people don't distinguish between those two, whether it's just this is the structural format of my tech, which is a codex, versus this is a really expensive art object. And as far as I'm concerned, they're all tech objects and very beautiful for different reasons, but there are a few books that I don't write in, but most of mine I do.
I saw a very strange. I have odd viewing habits on YouTube. I got so many different types of things popping up. One of them was real estate of an 18th century townhouse in London that was for sale, and he was giving a tour of it, and it was stuffed from the rafters to the basement with old books.
Yeah,
really, really old books, because the couple that lived there were translating for the Vatican. They were translating old books that were out of print.
Wow.
From Latin into Italian or English.
Right.
And for some reason, I don't know, that the work stopped. Everything was being sold. Perhaps they were old and they died. I don't really know. But he didn't. He said, it's full of books, but here's the doors. They're real solid. It's got good. Let's talk about the house. And then there was a follow-up video about a week later, and he said, I just wanted to explain something that now all these books here, we've gotten lots and lots and lots of emails from people saying, please don't let those books, get destroyed. We'll take them. We'll find somebody to take them. And it was, people look at that as a kind of a treasure.
Mm-hmm. Well, it is, and it's like thinking about what kind of treasure it is that is interesting. So, Kidra says, buying tonight, Casey. So you've sold one.
Oh, thank you.
John Abrissi's P.L. Travers, Mary Poppins thought schools and schooling was a disaster. Mark Twain's biographer said Twain enjoyed his Oxford honorary doctorate because he missed an education, but such an education or schooling would actually have killed his creativity and imagination. That was P.L. Travers' point too. Credentialing destroys originality. Well, so the problem. So back to the educational, like whether they should be reading Christian stories or the Bible in school. Even in the 19th century, the fights between all of these educational institutions were so bitter. Not just between Catholics. I mean, Catholics were setting up their own universities, so Notre Dame and Georgetown and Loyola and all of the Catholic schools. It was the Protestants that couldn't figure out which versions to use among each other, because everybody in Harvard, I guess, turned Unitarian or something. I don't know. And the Presbyterians were still there at Princeton, and because the different Protestant denominations, when the school started coordinating in the late 19th century over what education is supposed to be, and some of what John's saying, the credentialing, sort of, but they're trying to sort of come up with these gentleman agreements on how to standardize what they count. And instead of having the internal squabbling that happens between Protestant denominations, they just said, fine, teach your children at Sunday school to read the scriptures. We'll drop that.
Mm.
And Robert Patero's book Religious Literacy is actually incredibly important for this, because modern conversations tend to blame academia for secularizing. That wasn't that wasn't they didn't that it wasn't that the universities secularized. It's the Christians gave up.
Mm.
And they decided, oh, well, everybody goes to Sunday school, as you said, because like it's a Christian, churches everywhere, fine.
Yeah.
Everybody goes to Sunday school. So the learning the scriptures just left higher education in the late 19th century, and it's never come back.
Well, that's a very strange thing for seminary schools, which all of the Ivies are still.
Well, but
right?
they're all secular technically now. They, like Yale has a
Yeah.
divinity school, or Harvard has a divinity school, but the schools themselves don't train clergy. They're subset. The divinity schools train clergy, but the schools themselves don't anymore.
Mm. So, but there's schools where there are colleges within the universities. The divinity school is separate college.
It's a separate. It's like the law school or the medical school or something. It's a separate entity.
Right. Yeah. But it used to be integrated.
But it means so that Americans, and then what happened was, whatever the churches stopped, that's what was my joke that you responded to. Well, but the sisters taught me that because of the way Christianity changed in people's, experience and imagination and understanding and appeal, learning the scriptures dropped out. So, that we are religiously illiterate, blame your church.
Yeah, it's dropped out in the Catholics too, in Catholic education.
Yeah.
They don't teach the scriptures anymore. My husband and I were shocked that, we sent our son to preparation for his confirmation a couple of years ago, and they didn't crack a Bible open once.
See?
I'm like, are you kidding me?
Right.
Well, why? Why would you drop this? And they're still making banners. Oh gosh, I hope that it died in the 70s, but no, it didn't.
Felt banners. Yes. No, I know. Bad art, no scriptures. And so then, the thing is, I think it's perfectly fine if Texas is going to teach, the Bible as part of its literature requirement. Partly because
it's literature.
It's a literature. It's not. There's no religious education in the schools. Come on.
But there will be. There will be.
Well,
there will be.
But the thing is, there already is. We call it woke. Right? That you can't.
No, but I mean, there will be religious opinions expressed, and they won't all be good.
It's already happening. That's the problem. No. So seriously, if you have any literature, you can. I hear Proposition 1, Professor Fulton Brown. You cannot write a story without a worldview. Otherwise, it's. I mean, well, we could. I mean, whether the AIs have a worldview or not, but they're leeching off of ours. That a story requires a worldview. Worldview is just a neutral, fancy not term for religious framework. And what's so interesting, this is my fundamental claim about our writing Christian stories. And you were saying it earlier about Tolkien, right? If you actually have like a coherent thought,
yeah, you
have a worldview, you have an understanding of what you think is meaningful and real and moral, and from mores, just the ways you should behave, to significance of human life, and your stories are going to reflect that, which is exactly why our literature departments are the place where everybody fights all of the culture wars, because it's in our storytelling that all of this becomes completely overt. It's there, obviously implied in all the sciences, but they're not typically examining their epistemology on a daily basis. I mean, some of them do, but the literature departments turned into the kind of, culture war battlefields they did, because literature is the place where we express our religiosity. Now, anthropology is the sort of exercise of trying to look at it from the outside. Religious studies has completely fractured and fallen apart because it's actually, and I can say this sort of with some, professional authority, because I was with a group that was in discussion for 2 or 3 years, funded by the Mellon Foundation out of Notre Dame, where they were having conversations of religion and I was in the religion and history set. with Brad Gregory, whose Unintended Reformation on the Protestant, the effect of the Protestant reform on everything, including this, right? That the sort of fracturing of knowledge and, the philosophical collapse into relativity. One of the things we realized in talking about religion, we could talk, you can talk about history and practices of history and problems of studying from, there is either within religious studies or anthropology or any of the primary fields of study of religion, any way to define it. It's an undefinable entity, partly because people don't want to realize that to say anything, you have to stake a claim, a particular perspective. And as C.S. Lewis tried to teach us in Meditation on a Toolshed, the social sciences have a perspective just as much as the faith-based arguments do. Social sciences are religion. They're absolutely fundamentally. And Christian Smith, who's taught at Notre Dame in sociology, I think he may be somewhere else now, I'm not sure, wrote an excellent book called The Sacred Project of American Sociology, which proves from their own publications that what they're doing is teaching a particular theological vision of salvation.
My son's convinced that psychology is also a religion.
It is.
So I'm smiling when you said that, because he came to the same conclusion after studying it.
It totally is. So if you have a social science class, as all of the schools do, you're already being taught a religion. We mock it in the online world as woke, but that's what it is. It's and the sacred project of American sociology is the salvation of every individual. But the premise from a sociological perspective is the society is broken. So in order for every individual to be free, you had to fix everything in society. You see how that goes politically.
Yeah. Right. You have to fix it without religion. And if anybody, a religious persuasion tries to interject, then you expand the fixing to getting rid of the religion.
But it's because you have a religion as a sociologist, which is the freedom of the individual.
But they'll never say that.
Well, that's and that's of course why people got mad at people like him and me for pointing it out, saying you have a particular religious perspective, you call it something else, but it is actually, the secular, atheistic, functionalist worldview is a religious worldview, because religion is the perspective on reality that you take.
Yes, that's a good way to put it.
Yeah.
Right. And yes, they will act with religious fervor. You can say that to them and they'll say, no, I'm not acting like a religious person, but you are.
But they are. They're humanly, in human terms, and that's, again, we've all been watching it play out online, which is an interesting place. For several decades now, but very actively in the last decade. And it's, of course, it's what I said in my divinity school newsletter piece that got everybody mad at me. It's a religious battle, and that's why it has the sort of emotional character that it does. At the time, I was talking about why Milo was so alarming for everybody, but it's the same kind of level of things, which we keep seeing over and over again. So my perspective is, they're already being taught a religion in the schools, and that it's unmarked, right? And this is an anthropological game, right? It's saying what's marked and unmarked. And the unmarked is, they love talking about how the unmarked is always the systems of power and the hierarchies, the domination that you're not acknowledging. For example, imperialism, right? Which in anthropology was usually you go in and you mark all of these weird customs that the natives have. But what you don't mark is your own perspective. So the unmarked is going to be this, in their terms, it was usually the white supremacist imperial hegemony. Well, guess what? Now, they're not marking their own perspective, and it leaves them in the...
No, they're pure.
Right. They think they can be unmarked. So we have a particular kind of challenge writing Christian stories into this perspective. How's that for a setup?
Right.
Right. So how would you write stories? How would you write stories that show the modern audience the perspective that they're taking? Oh, look, you
Oh,
have. Look at that book that you're sitting there in your lap with.
did I?
Did you?
I'm
You
not sure
did.
I did.
You did indeed.
I know
No, yes, you
you
did.
can. I just wanted to
I
write a fun story.
see. Well, okay, but what makes a fun story? Maybe we go. Maybe we should go there. What makes a fun story?
Well, it's entirely subjective, isn't it? I mean, I had a lot of fun writing one of them.
Okay. So the literature people would desperately beg both yes and no, right? It's all subjective. Maybe not. We've seen that in movies, right? Oh, I just want to have a good movie. It's like, well, what makes it a good movie? Well, we just know what it is. Okay. I'll shut up now.
I don't have an answer for it because so the lead poem is called The Willow Switch, and I had a lot of fun writing this because I was writing about it. Sorry, I can't talk about it without laughing. I was writing about a specific type of, because it's my perspective, a specific type of American woman who gets into this, or it's a specific demographic who gets into pretend witchcraft,
which they get through books.
Which they get through books. Yeah, they get through books, and they also get through gossip and fellowship because it's a religion, right? And in this case, she's joined a religion that, as far as I know, was started by a retired British civil servant in the 1950s. But they created an entire back history, which of course wasn't written down. That was all destroyed by the church. None of that's in this poem. That's just background as I'm writing it. But yeah, it's a specific type of women, and well, she's just a twit.
You're not doing it. I'm gonna have to make you read some of your own poem. So the thing is, your ladies are exactly the kind of people, and as I hope I've demonstrated with my pet unicorn. I am of course not innocent of these fantasies myself. So fair in the sense of I've been, I know what they're reading, right?
Yeah. I'm just familiar with the bookstores because
this pet unicorn is.
Oh, it's so sweet.
We're just gonna sit here and be fluffy for a minute. That they're the kind of people that the Barnes and Noble is stocking its shelves for.
Yeah, I've been in front of. I wouldn't go in them. A lot of these types of bookstores in Seattle. So they were. That type of
Barnes and Noble
was real prevalent there. No. Into what I wrote about in here in the Willow Switch. So the bookstore is it's background, but it's a certain type of person that patronizes it.
What does she look like?
Oh, she's very polished. She's in her 30s. She's got a little bit of money. She's divorced, so she's got a little bit of her husband's money.
I didn't remember that. Okay, go ahead.
She's a big wine appreciator. No, it's just assumed, right? No, it's the type of people who, well, yeah, they're joining. It's a book club, right?
Book club.
Really, but it's an excuse to get together. It's the kind of people
that buy book totes that say stuff about how reading improves you and stuff like that. Reading takes you place. There was the merchandise in Barnes and Noble is not limited to the Harry Potter dial. I can tell you.
Yeah. Well, there were crystal enthusiasts, and they would be feminist power enthusiasts. But there's definitely the I'm having trouble. This is why I had to write in poetry. I'm having trouble describing this. You have to actually see it in the wild to see what I mean. But it's a type of woman who. Or a type of women who would like places like this because it's somewhat feminist, because it's about power and it's about getting power. None of these women that go to these book clubs are going to get it, but they like feeling like they are. It's an atmosphere they're going for, right? So it's basically they're hobbyists, and one of the hobbyists has found it's a very good way to make money, but she's still a believer. She believes it. That's why she opened this bookstore. And actually, there's two bookstores in both the stories. I just thought about that. It's like a theme here in the back of my head. But she's messing around with something very dangerous, and she doesn't realize it. They all are really from on one level or another. But people who do this, I find it hard to restrain myself or telling them don't do it. You don't know what you're getting into. Because bad things can happen when you mess around with the shadow man. Bad things can happen, but they don't think they are. They think they're just tapping into some energy somewhere. But it's not just in the ether. It has a source.
Well, so my point, yes, right. So, and I'm telling you that Barnes and Noble in our neighborhood is filled with this innocent desire for unicorns and power, as it were. I mean,
there's no innocent desire for power.
Well, I'm teasing you. But they flirt with it, and the flirting with it is, I mean, it is fascinating. And it's fascinating to acknowledge how it's grown throughout our lifetime. So that all of this, it was when I was in college and going to the occult bookstore, it felt weird and odd, right? And I knew it was, and I was in college, and so of course it was fun being weird and odd, and doing religious studies and reading all these different traditions and such, and then finding out that one of the books I got, which I still haven't read because I'm just carrying it around because it's a useful prop. One of Blavatsky's theosophical Bibles, right? Isis Unveiled. And I went to one of my religious studies professors, and I'm like, oh, I found this book. And he's like, that sounds like, this theosophy stuff. And I'm like, what's that?
Yeah.
Right? The thing is, you don't necessarily know, right?
No, you don't. No, yeah, and they don't. And the characters in the book don't. The inspiration for these characters, the people who would go to these independent bookstores, back in the 90s, back in the 80s, back in the 70s, because I did briefly as an older child live in San Francisco. So you can imagine
I was in Houston when I was going to the one that I'm describing. So I think San Francisco got it before we did.
Well, yeah, it was part of the hippie culture, which morphed into the new age culture,
right.
Which was definitely entwined with third wave feminism for sure. And then anyway, they've been around a while, these types of places. Barnes and Noble has a big display. I'm not surprised. They kind of took over a lot of independent bookstores of all types, including religious ones, and I just heard a sad story of a bookstore in Seattle that closed down. I didn't even realize it existed. It was a bookstore that specialized in technical books. They loved it. They called it Ada's Place after Ada Lovelace. And I thought, oh, what a sweet idea. They couldn't survive, but that's another story. So yeah, Barnes and Noble took over a lot of these places. So I remember seeing them in the big we call them big box stores, big box bookstores, right? Because they're a bit like Lowe's or Home Depot, but for books. And there was always these very large, spiritual sections, right, where they would have just everything. They would just put everything there. But now they've got an occult section. I don't think I've ever seen that in a Barnes and Noble in one of the big stores before.
Oh, I've seen them for a long time. They have. I mean, they call them New Age. But it was all. I mean, it's all the tarot cards. I mean, even the ones in Amarillo, which it's otherwise the Bible Belt. There's big sections of the mystical, magical stuff. And sometimes they do actually label it occult. So Sarah's saying maybe more people should watch The Princess and the Frog for what can happen when you make a deal with your friends on the other side.
That's where I got the Shadow Man from. Yeah, that is a stupendous movie. It's Disney's absolute best. I cannot recommend it enough. This was an overtly Christian movie, and I just loved it. But I loved it because it's doing what I'm trying to do with the poems. Is like warn people. Right. This is not something you mess around with. It's not fun. It's not a hobby. I remember an interview with somebody who studies this academically. She's a Catholic, and she said she had books on her shelf that she never opened because they're too dangerous. I'm like, get them out of your house. What is wrong with you?
Yes.
But I mean, she at least understands they're dangerous, but
Well, so
Lots of people
this is
don't.
the sense of whether reading the Bible in the wrong context is dangerous versus reading the Bible at all is dangerous. I think some people think, oh, if you let them read the Bible at all, they'll all magically become Christian, which would be an interesting effect.
That's a bit silly.
And it's a similar thing. You were saying, well, it's a concern if we have other religions in the world and in our, in our communities, and their kids are in school and they're all going to want them to read their books. I mean, does
Well, they
a
are.
Christian reading the Quran magically become Muslim? How did I mean?
It's not. It's not that they're going to magically become Muslim. It's that they're going to be bullied into it because lots of people do not take the same tact of evangelization as Christians do. They're not famous for their tolerance, right? So we have to actually take that into account when we're thinking of, well, what do you want to make Muslim kids read? I don't want to make them read the Bible. It's going to offend their parents. What's the point? There's lots of things they can read.
I'm not. Well, I'm not sure Muslims are offended at reading the Bible.
No, but their parents might be offended that their children are being forced to. That's the issue.
Well, it's interesting. It's interesting. Okay, so you're taking this very strongly because, of course, this is what your story is about. This woman with her bookshop trying to entice the daughter into.
Yeah. Well, she's using her daughter.
Yes.
Yeah. And I kind of made that explicit.
Well, and the danger of luring, I mean, we have various different levels of who's reading the books and the where the children fit in the story as well, because of the education and the knowledge and what is the reading, what effect is the reading can have. Maybe we should read a bit of the poem and give people a flavor it. You read very well. Do you want to read your poem or do you want me to read it?
I would like you to read it. I would feel a little bit weird.
Okay. I don't know. I mean, come on, this is your debut moment. Right?
I know.
But I mean, so you can imagine if we were in a Barnes and Noble and we were doing a book reading, wouldn't you read your own?
Well, how much of it should? Yes, I would. How much?
I think
I'm very shy.
I think, well, but I know from years of practicing writing in the Dragon Common Room, we read a bit every time we start to warm up into our stanza form, and you read beautifully. So I really think you need to read read.
Well, why don't you pick a passage?
Well, I'd start. In the Willow Switch, read the first.
Okay.
Five stanzas.
Sure.
Something like that.
Okay. First. Okay. All right. Here goes.
The Willow Switch.
The Willow Switch. The ladies met for book club once a week in leafy enclaves of suburban bliss. A gently educated post-grad clique whose grasp of quality was hit or miss. Their love of wine and gossip was flawless. Good evening, ladies, said their hostess Gwyn. We have a guest this week, an authoress, the feminine Magique. Her book was penned to help reclaim our power from the world of men. Excitement swept through the bougie salon, each whispering through sips of Cabernet. The honored guest, Morgana Cambion, perched elegantly under the archway, was silently performing a survey, identifying opportunities until she made her opening foray. I see we have a young witch here, said she. Now, don't be shy. Come sit betwixt your mum and me. The little girl smiled awkwardly at first, then sat down as her mother waved her near. As heirs of Lilith, we must break the curse imposed upon us by the cloud of fear. Morgana was composed, well-spoken, clear, as she dismantled patriarchal mores with logic and knowledge beyond her years. When we're in charge, there will be no more wars. The ladies lapped it up and clapped for an encore. She bowed her head in modest gratitude as Gwyn distributed her books to read. Morgana watched the young girl's attitude, determining the best way to proceed. The girl looked bored. As she got up to leave, her mother stopped her, asking her to play in the courtyard under the willow tree. And choose some branches for a small bouquet to give our guest. The girl nodded and skipped away. She seems a quiet girl, Morgana said. Oh, Elspeth is a pensive one indeed. She reads each night before she goes to bed. Morgana asked, what does she like to read? Old legends, myths, and classic folk stories. That's her favorite section in our store. She started on children's theosophy. I see her intellect is well cared for. I'd love conversing with your clever child some more.
I mean, you set it up really well. It's like all of the, it's like we're at the bookstore, the books. It's all the books. What does she like to read? I mean, it's like what I was. This is what's funny. Is like, are we sure we want everybody to learn to read? Look what happens.
Yeah, well, she's a very smart little girl.
They get tempted.
But not a very smart mother.
Right, but I think in the story it's really well done because you play off of all of these kinds of enticements, right? For the sociability, the prestige, prestige, yes. Isn't it just good to want to learn to read stories, the love of fairy stories? I mean,
yes. Theosophy,
right?
Yes,
which is technically what the Isis Unveiled that I found was, right? And that we get.
But I found out that children's theosophy is actually a subject.
Oh my gosh!
Which I was shocked at, which is why it's in there.
But actually, like Madame Blavatsky theosophy,
books written for children on theosophy. Yes,
my goodness.
That's a thing.
Okay, so see, I mean, it's like, and some people, of course, you worry about. Oh, well, wouldn't other people, people of other faiths, I don't like that. It's like there's, Christianity's true, guys. I'm just not going to, I'm not going to budge on this. All the other things are misleading you, and we can explain why. And as Christians, we are commanded to be able to give reasons for our faith. So, it's 1 Peter, right? That the dangers, I think in the Willow Switch, you do a wonderful job of showing the dangers of getting enticed by that reading practice.
I hadn't thought about that, but yes, yeah, it's a communal act in a bookstore like this when she's going to be reading from her own works.
Right?
Didn't I just do that?
You just did.
But I'm making fun of them.
Well, but we're participating in it. I mean, this is always the problem of it being in the world but not of it, right? It's like if we're going to tell Christian stories, what does that mean? How do we do it? And we're saying that we as Christians are, bound and commanded by our Savior to speak the truth into the world, and yet we're worried about doing it. I mean, I like, or we're worried about offending people. What won't those? I mean, I'm going to push back on you here. Won't those parents complain?
Well, parents complain about things all the time, but the thing that they're complaining about has precedent where it caused problems that it didn't need to cause. I want people to become Christian too. I'm happy we live in a country where people can choose to do this. They can't choose to do this in Muslim countries. They'll get killed. Right.
But so you don't want to be in a Muslim country is what you're saying. So you want us to stay Christian.
Right.
So how do we do that? We got to figure out how we do that.
Do that by blatantly evangelizing, but you don't do that by, capturing people's children and forcing them to read a Bible. You don't do that. That's not going to happen. Not the way you want it to. Can you?
I know you. It's always author. I've interviewed authors before. I know this comes as a surprise, and it's very tempting not to want to give too much of your story away, but you need to give some more of it away so that we understand what we're talking about.
Okay, what do you mean the next?
Well, not reading it, just sort of explaining the tensions that you're developing in the story, and obviously you've written it as a poem. I'd say it's nice to, acknowledge our art and say there's certain things that we're able to say in not just in a story form, not just in a short story form, but in the poetry form that we've been practicing, that become possible to say that can't be said in prose, right? Because of the way the rhymes and the stanzas and the structure of it all builds up to a certain kind of understanding that is not available in prose. Guys, poetry's great.
Well, particularly because we're writing about magic.
Right.
And magic is like incantations, and we often say and have said for years, English is a magic language. It really is. People who people who were not raised speaking English find it a difficult language to learn. And I know why it's a difficult language to learn, because it's extremely flexible, and a lot of other languages aren't. And so, and a lot of it is intuitive. And, doesn't that sound a little bit like magic?
I had never thought of it that way. I mean,
Yeah.
just straight up to, how to pronounce it and irregularity of all our verbs.
It's totally contextual, right?
Yes.
Yes. The pronunciations are contextual. Sometimes the definitions are contextual.
Syntax is, well, I hadn't thought of that, but of course, and English. I mean, poetry is English. The poetry is England's great art, and poetry is, a great art in English. I mean, other traditions obviously have poetry, but of all of the art forms that we've practiced, even Mike Jones and his Dangers of Beauty, who did German music, Italian painting, and English poetry. English poetry is a very particular, I mean, not genius, but it
is genius.
Well, it is genius, but I'm looking at the sort of like the most highly crafted thing that's come out of England is its poetry.
It's its language, isn't that crazy? Because the language was born in war and blood, and 5 languages smashed together against its will.
Right. Weird, isn't it?
Yeah.
Weird.
Yeah, very weird. Very weird how something good and beautiful can come out of something bad, because there was a lot of hundreds of years of wars that under which the English people and the language developed over time.
Well, and also under terrible political stress. If you say the reason that the English becomes so elusive and indirect and courtly, and it's partly because of the political violence for centuries. You can't speak openly, so you speak indirectly and elusively. This is why there's, you get to argue about Shakespeare all the time, because exactly who do you know that you're talking to? Are you going to be talking to someone who's going to have you thrown in the thrown in jail, taken, given to the pirates, and it's funny that we have this idea of freedom of speech in the English speaking world. Some of it's because there wasn't any.
Yeah.
For centuries, right? You say the wrong thing, you're clapped in irons for treason.
And isn't that making a comeback? We hope it's brief, right? In England.
Well, maybe. So this is totally off the top of my head and just considered it. I mean, freedom of speech for the English is one of the most terrifying things we can possibly say, because it's the single thing that we're skilled at.
Maybe that's why they control it so tightly.
Very possibly.
Don't want those magic spells getting out.
Those bookstores are really dangerous places. Very, very dangerous places. But it is true. It's like Alexander Pope was Catholic. He's greatest practitioner of iambic pentameter. Most of his, his poetry is written in a context in which he can't have the social standing that he would have otherwise, because he's Catholic.
Right.
And he's writing in the early 18th century in, Hanoverian England. Oh my goodness. The jacket. This is one of the things that came up in the pirate book that I was reading this weekend, that the pirates sided with the Jacobites, the supporters of the king of the supporters of the Stuart claimant to the Catholic Stuart claimant.
Really?
Yes.
Wow.
And there's a very interesting split in the course of the golden age of piracy is actually like 3 years, but it's 1715 to 1720 or thereabouts, and in 18, George the First offers a pardon to the pirates if they will, and it offers a pardon to the pirates because one of the concerns that was coming up was that many of them were declaring for the Stuart, James, and the pirates then split over that, right? Whether they would take the pardon from the hated Protestant German Hanoverian king, or whether they would stay with their loyalty to the Catholic
Okay, so I gotta say this. It's just my head's gonna explode. So, Pirates of the Caribbean, when you first meet Davy Jones, he appears on a ship. He's
Mm,
about to take crew members, and he offers everybody a choice. Right? You can join my crew, or you can die. And the only person who didn't join his crew had a rosary in his hand,
interesting.
and he said, "I'll take my chances."
Interesting.
Yeah.
Well, so I mean, there's layers. I didn't know this about this. This is well, I didn't know this in detail about the pirates anyway. That uh, the pardon comes as a machinations on the part of, not forgetting his name, Wode, who is trying to finagle his way into a governorship of the Bahamas, and by way of pulling in favors and various things like that, in England gets this pardon as part of the deal because he's hoping to use it, diplomatically to pacify the region. But yeah, so the Protestant Catholic tension, I think naively, I mean, it's been one of the interesting things for me is, becoming from being Presbyterian, being Catholic, and realizing there's this whole alternate world that I have, not just like, oh, it's goth and oh, isn't it cool and we have rosaries and stuff, but just because of the political silencing of Catholicism in the English speaking world, it's like two different, we speak the same language, but you don't read the King James Bible.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
It's very, very interesting. Totally different history, totally different feel to the same story from the opposite side.
Yeah, there's all these other details you didn't know were there.
Right. I mean, never
Yeah.
mind the Inquisition or, the black legend of the Spanish conquest. It's just all, and the English, because, so you've had Protestants and Catholics writing in English this whole time. The greatest poets are all these Catholics like Alexander Pope and Jared Manley Hopkins, right? You write in poetry because you can't say this thing directly.
Yes. Yeah. Or it's a bit much harder to say directly.
Right.
Yeah.
As well as that, Christianity has a particular relationship to the word and to the resonance of the creatures with the creator and the figures and the symbolisms within scripture and all of those, wonderful medieval allegories that I'm used to thinking of. All of that is carried in our language, in our poetry, which is, of course, the horror of what's happening with the AI, because it can't, it doesn't understand that because it doesn't have a transcendent referent. And
no, that's it. Yeah.
the argument, the sort of ironic horribleness of what happens when all of these people are, it's like English has become the Latin of the world, which means you're losing a lot of its richness because you're constantly talking to people who can't get the connotations. I mean, whether they get a denotation is one thing, right? The dictionary definition. It's like you can't get the reference. It's the meme world, multiplied massively. That I want to say something that has these resonances off to all of these other aspects of our tradition and to understanding of Christ, and you don't know what I'm talking about because it like the referent just stops at, donkey. I don't know, right? It's like,
right. Also, people from different areas of the world, if they speak English or not, whether or not they get context of everything, they don't have the same rhythm. They don't talk in the same manner. But because we communicate not just with the words, but with our faces, with our facial expressions, with how we hold ourselves, the way that we're standing, where we're looking, it all matters. How you walk also matters. You can always tell somebody's from a country different from the one when you're in, because they will, their whole persona, the way they walk and carry themselves and gesture will be completely foreign to what you're used to seeing.
Right. So I asked Grok at one point, why are people so bad at reading figures of speech? People seem noticeably worse at recognizing figures of speech today for very few, very concrete reasons that accelerated in the last 10 to 15 years. I thought they gave a good answer. One, text-heavy, content-stripped communication. So all of the most daily interaction now happens in short written bursts where tone of voice, facial expression, and shared physical context are gone. Sarcasm, hyperbole, and idioms evolved in spoken language with heavy paralinguistic cues. When you remove those cues, I'm dying literally looks like a medical emergency to someone who isn't tuned in.
That's a pretty good answer, actually.
Grok, yeah, we may like you.
Yeah.
Literalism trained by algorithms and bureaucracy. Social media platforms, HR departments, customer service bots, and moderation AIs all punish ambiguity. Say something ironic, and it can get flagged, canceled, or just misunderstood by an algorithm that only reads literal strings. Over time, people self-censor into ultra-literal speech, and younger users grow up assuming everything online is 100% straight. This is a huge problem. Death of shared cultural references, which is one that people like. Second language and global English. Huge chunks of online discourse are now between non-native speakers using English as a lingua franca. Non-native speakers default to literal readings because that's safer when you're not 100% confident in the nuances. Native speakers then mirror that style to be understood globally. So we're stripping ourselves of all of these reference and
to accommodate people who aren't native speakers, or to accommodate electronic communications.
Yep. Pedantry as identity. Being the guy who actually corrects obvious hyperbole became a low effort way to look smart online. Indeed, right? Once that pattern gets once that pattern gets rewarded with likes and ratio replies, more people do it, which trains everyone else to speak ultra literally to avoid the pile-on. And I think that's actually a nice recognition, right? 6, decline of English lit classes that actually teach this stuff. A lot of school systems have de-emphasized rhetoric, poetry, satire, and close reading of complex texts in favor of STEM or practical writing. So an entire generation is reaching adulthood without ever having been asked to distinguish litotes from understatement from plain line. Put those together and you get a perfect storm. The medium strips cues, the culture rewards literalism, the references are gone, and nobody was explicitly taught how metaphor works in the first place. Result is an internet full of people sincerely asking, who hurt you, when someone says, I'm dead, after a funny video. It's not that humans suddenly got dumber. The environment changed in ways that brutally punish figurative language and reward treating every sentence like a legal contract. I thought that was pretty good. Good going, Grok.
Yeah, that was a good answer.
Yeah.
But it also tells us that people have been talking about it, because that's where Grok's pulling the answers from.
Right.
So that's a good thing.
Yes.
It's a good thing so long as they do something about it.
Well, I would say all of this is pertinent to our problem of how do we write, as Christians into this scenario. Given that, so much of understanding Christianity it plays out in these rhetorical ways. It's absolutely necessary to saying things about the relationship between the material and the spiritual and so forth.
That's a good point.
Back to your story. The thing is, which you are, I understand. I get it's hard to talk about one's own writing. I don't do it very well myself. I almost never teach my own stuff in class. I can't do it. It's like, well, here I said. And then my students will get mad. I've had them mad at me in course evaluation. So like my Mary course is like, she seemed to have a particular idea about to get across. I'm like, well, yes, I've been thinking about this for a long time.
for a while. Yeah.
Other classes, I'm like, well, I'll try this on, or well, I don't think about that. I could change my mind. I'm not changing my mind about this one because I've already gone through those layers several times. Gosh, what was I thinking? I keep doing that.
That's okay.
Me and my support unicorn need help right now.
Support unicorn. Where's your support dragon? Or is the dragon the unicorn support animal?
The unicorn's fluffy. I don't know. You guys, I'm still missing Drake.
Oh, I know. Beautiful boy.
Moment of silence for Drake. Anyway. Now I've totally lost it. Talking about one's own writing. How do we write Christian stories How do we talk with a particular perspective?
I think you have to ask, well, what message do you want to get out? And people say, well, this it shouldn't have a message. I know Critical Drinker likes to joke about the message. That's not what I'm talking
For
about.
modern audiences.
Yeah, right. I'm saying
we clearly need more drinking if we're going to catch up with him.
I know. He's hilarious. I love him. No, you have to think about what message that you're trying to send, and not just, I want to send a Christian message. I had something very specific in mind when I wrote these, and the message was, to rip off Disney for a minute. You don't mess with the Shadow Man. It's a very bad idea.
No, that's I was listening to one of the guys who wrote Nemo. One of the Pixar guys talk about things, and he says he works on having over his desk a phrase that is the action of the story, and that it's exactly like that. It's a very good job. You've achieved Pixar level.
Thank you. Well,
you don't mess with the Shadow Man. Okay, so say more about how you learned to figure that out in the Willow Switch. So we got the girl, and she's at this bookstore, and they're doing the book reading and the dangers of it. And
well, the date. Well, okay, I'll go back a little further in my readings over the years. So I read Gabriel Amorth's books, and he was the chief exorcist of Rome. And one of the things that he said and they were interviews with him about his time doing this job. He died about 15 years ago, I think. Very interesting books. People's anonymity was protected. But one of the things that stuck with me was that he said people would often find themselves possessed or oppressed demonically because they brought it on purpose, because they were trying to get power. They're trying to get something, little spells, something. They were like casting a spell, or they were introduced into witchcraft like this. And he said, the devil's not giving you stuff because he likes you. So,
excellent
that
point.
That stuck in my head. It's like it's like in the movie The Princess and the Frog. The Christ-like person is Mama Odie, and Mama Odie says, "Now, which one of you naughty children have been messing around with the Shadow Man?"
Right.
And it's like, because she knew one of them did, because they were cursed. And that only happens when you start trying to contact the devil, which you do when you get into witchcraft and divination and things like that. So in this story, this woman's doing just that because she thinks it's fun, because it's popular, because there's all these little bookstores everywhere, and because people can get together and have wine and drink and talk about their power and their feminine power and get in their little support circle while they have some old lady, who's wise, a wise woman, the crone, the old crone. She's going to tell us how it is, and then we're all going to slap each other on the back and go home and go back to our jobs or our husbands or whatever. It's a fantasy. But it's a really, really bad idea, because it's a fantasy in their heads, but it's still a spiritual reality that they're messing around with something very dangerous.
Okay, so now I can play devil's advocate.
Okay.
But you're saying you're worried that you don't want to push Christianity on people's throats, and you don't want to.
I don't want to force them to.
Right, to force them to, but. I mean, isn't this, just your interpretation of what these witchcraft practices are? Can't they be good?
No. They're never good. They're never good. And
she's doing what I do, really. Okay. They can't be good. Are you sure? I mean, come on. Isn't this just another perspective on reality?
It's not a perspective. It's actual concrete, like documented cases of people who messed around with witchcraft and got themselves possessed. And this is Amorth's Father Amorth's. It's his recollections that there were his cases, right? A very long time ago, somebody in my office said, "Well, not all witchcraft is bad." We were having this exact same conversation, and she says, "I know some white magic spells." And this is way before I read Amorth, before these books were written. but it seemed highly logical to me to ask her, well, where do you think that power is coming from? Where is it coming from? God does not have power extracted from him. He doesn't do party tricks. The devil might do it. Devil might do it because he wants to get you hooked. He's like a drug dealer.
Mm-hmm.
Right. That's why.
Well, every single one of those books in the Barnes and Noble seemed to me to be making that promise. Read me and you will have power.
Well, like The Secret, or that book was popular a couple of years ago. It was the same thing.
Well, I mean,
the
temptation of knowledge is huge. We have a character in Draco Chemicus who embodies this problem. She's the moon. That you go into a book's. The thing is, I think the other side of things. So the English do poetry. They also do witchcraft. There's a huge sub. Well, it's not even sub anymore. It's straight there in the bookstore. This culture, subculture of, the learned books, the true books, the women's herbals and literature and such carried all the true knowledge of the tradition.
Oh, yeah. It got really infused into the culture starting in the 90s. I think it stopped being a unique specialty, and it just kind of started getting infused into everything.
Right.
And I think Rowling wrote this incredibly wonderful and whimsical story about a witchcraft school. And I haven't read the books yet. I've seen the movies dozens of times. I love them. They're very fun. When my son was very young, we wouldn't let him watch those movies or read those books until he was old enough to understand that it was completely fiction, because there are people in reality who are witches in the world or call themselves such. And they're messing around with the Shadow Man. And I wanted to make sure he knew the difference, that what she was writing, she was not writing about those people. She was writing completely made up people, a completely made up world, completely made up powers. But there are people living in the real world who like to call themselves witches, and they're actually trying to cast spells. When in nonfiction world, people try to do this, bad things happen, because any power they get is not coming from God, and it can only come from God or the devil. It's not coming from anywhere else. It's not floating around in the ether. It's not like some overripe tree you can just pick fruit from.
It's an image of the power floating around in the ether. I mean, isn't that science?
Is it?
Aren't you? So
I mean, Tesla thought it could be,
right. That you could just pluck energy out of the resonances of the material world, and that's
you have
actually
to do an incantation first when you do it.
Okay, so this has gone in a direction that I hadn't thought about. Well, no, because in my grok answer was, the language has become all STEM focused, and what the interesting thing about making language all STEM focused is making it all power effective, right? What people love about the idea of the magic of words is you say things and they become real, and the internet runs on that, right? If we can squawk and screech enough about whatever thing we're alarmed over, whatever we say becomes reality. And of course, the reality that you're playing with there is simply in people's minds. But people then act in the world, and that's therefore the dangerousness of letting people just read anything, because they might put these words in their heads and then act on them. So all of the magic is ultimately through our own behavior.
Mm-hmm.
How do we okay, so I agree with you. Recognize that there's a dangerous temptation to want to draw on something, and in your story you show, I think, very effectively where the danger is.
There's a temptation to power. There's a temptation to power, and there's a temptation to live forever, which is part of the power.
Mm-hmm. Yes,
that people keep trying, right? People have always tried throughout history. They've always tried, spells and potions, and now the potions are getting scientific.
Mm-hmm.
But you can put death off, but it's you can't avoid it. The harm comes when people do anything to avoid it. It's psychological harm and it's real physical harm sometimes.
Do anything that sounds ominous.
Yeah. Sounds ominous. Yeah, like getting blood transfusions. It sounds vampiric, but somebody did that from their own child.
With that guy, whatever his name is, who's trying to live forever by taking his son's blood.
To be fair, he stopped that.
Oh, good.
But I think it wasn't working.
Well,
but yeah, and it was, and his son was an adult, I think. God, I hope.
No, his son was an adult or a young adult. I mean, he's younger than
consensual. Yeah.
Okay, but you're saying the power has to come from somewhere. The promise is a lie. The temptation is it, but it's so. I mean, it's interesting in the way you've set the story up. I thought was quite effective because the mother of the girl gets tempted first. It's sort of.
Oh yeah, she's very susceptible to flattery.
Right.
Very, and position and status.
So that the ways in which this sneaks up on us is somewhat ordinary. Being the thing that, in the ways in which we're always tempted into dangerous situations, the grooming, right?
Yeah. This is essentially a story about grooming, right? And about parents. A good parent recognizing it, and a bad parent not recognizing it.
Right. Which is then why you realize this story gives me chills. because it's very effective. It's also, just, right. Well, she can just, the girl can just let her go play or this or that. And you realize the mother is not paying any attention properly whatsoever because she's so, overawed by being brought into this particular social network that she thinks she's going to be able to join. And that is her great temptation. And that she's not doing her job as a mother, protecting her daughter against it.
Right.
And that it's all female. You described it in the opening scene where it's all the women meeting at the book club. And that, I mean, for us women, these are our kinds of temptations, right? It's the great temptation to want to belong to the group.
Oh yes. To belong to the group, but also to be close to the head of that group. Right.
Yes, exactly.
You want to be besties with the princess all the time.
Oh my gosh. And I mean, it's dangerous for the princess too, presumably. But this, being besties with the Terry Pratchett has this set up in now which of the witches stories that he has it. But there's a young witch calls herself Diamante or something, and her real name is like Ethel or something. But she. Which is a perfectly fine name, but she thinks it's not.
I know, but that's such a girl thing to do.
Right, I need this mystical name, this gemstone name instead of my regular name, and she dresses in occult jewelry and fingerless gloves and black and everything, and I of course I think Granny Weatherwax has to end up rescuing her at some point from whatever nonsense she's gotten herself involved in because the power is there, but it's not what she thinks it is. She thinks it's power over others. And of course, what Granny Weatherwax is recognizes, even though everybody hates her, sort of, is its responsibility too. Instead, it's not power over.
Well, that's why everybody hates her, right? Is she a killjoy? Is that what it is?
Something like that. I mean, I mean, you of course the reader loves her, right? But the premise is that she lives alone in the woods and is scary, but partly because she knows how theatrically people think, and so she'll do theatrical things because they expect it. But the real cure is in something else, right? It's always it's facing down death is of course her forte. Because that's what you do when you're responsible. You sit with a dying, I'm going to cry now.
It's okay. We love you, Drake, wherever you are, which we hope is heaven.
Was I mean, so, and the power of stories is, of course, giving you all of these frames for thinking through what you're living through, which is ordinary and eternal at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, John, controversial, says, forget the Bible. The real Catholic book to study religion per se is the Catechism. We're going to fight you.
Interestingly enough, at my son's confirmation, they weren't given Bibles; they were given catechisms.
Yeah.
So you'd be happy to know.
Well, so the thing is, I can take some of that. Is part of the problem is the Bible doesn't read itself. Sorry, John Calvin.
Right.
You know, it's you need a frame of interpretation to be able to understand it, because the Bible is actually a set of scripts for things you do within religion. It's not itself an explanation of it.
Yeah, right.
And the Catechism is trying to give you the frame for being able to read correctly in it. And what Calvin, Presbyterian person, as was says, is, you know, like, the Bible teaches you to read itself because the Holy Spirit's always guiding you. And it's like, well, there is some truth in that, right? The sort of the way in which things come together and the sort of poetic feeling of all the connections. It feels like the Spirit pointing you to understanding, but you still have to have I mean, the chicken and egg problem of catechism is enormous. Can you see the world from the perspective that Christ is trying to show us without people talking to you about it? It's like, does it just come to you as a baby? Where do we come? How do we find ourselves in a particular culture? Which means that we need education, which means then the children are always in danger because you've always got adults telling them one thing and another. And how do they discern?
Yeah. Right, which is where parents come in to help with that.
Right, which is what your story is about. John also says Hercule Poirot was Catholic. Did Agatha Christie pull it off with the guy just being himself inside a larger story? Now, one of the things I was doing is I was helping, I don't know, sitting with my dog for months, was watching all the Poirots, and I was astonished, talking about sneaking true Christianity in various places. Poirot, in a number of, even some of the later episodes, gives characters rosaries, or has a rosary, or is saying his prayers. And I'm like,
that's cool.
My goodness. Like, maybe we're not in such desperate straits as we thought, right? That there are places where rosaries show up a lot. It's there, even in Discovery of Witches, when the Matthew character is
we first seen,
is, you know, he's Catholic, he's you know, he has a rosary. I was like, I mean, that's where the sort of goth mode of Catholicism. It's like we can sneak in on the other side because people really are wishing for the mystery to come with the Addams Family version of things. We should bring that. We should think about that a little bit. John saying, religion is science. It is foremost a worldview or statement about what we know about creation, space, time, eternity, etc. Yes. Religion is scientia. It's knowledge. Religion is the binding to, and I'd say religion is the way that we are paying attention to what we learn, the knowledge that we have. But yes, religion, if serious, surely has to make claims confidently about reality. Yes. Because, I mean, this is the oddity of everything. Oh, it's a scientific reading. It's like, if it's science, it's religious, because you are saying something true about reality, and then you're wanting to be in proper relationship with that reality. So social sciences are, they are a religion. They are making religious claims. And our challenge as Christian storytellers is to point that out in a way that people can actually, I don't know, do you experience it first and then understand it? It's faith-seeking understanding. It's like, or you understand it and then experience it.
It depends on the person, I think.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, we're all unique. We usually fall in one camp or the other, but there are saints who approached God intellectually first, and then they felt it.
Well, Augustine's always a great model for the philosopher talking himself both in and out of the prayer.
I love that he finally became a Christian because it was basically a competition to him. It's like, why are these people they're going to get to heaven before me? I don't like this, to paraphrase.
That's not the way I understood it, but I mean, but that he needed to hear. He was a teacher of rhetoric, and then he was in Milan, and he heard Ambrose preaching, and it started making intellectual sense. He started seeing that there was a richness of understanding that he hadn't been able to appreciate previously.
Right.
So he suddenly,
because he had gotten faith from his mom.
Right.
And
then he became a Manichaean because, it seemed clearer to him that there was a good and evil side of things fighting each other. And that made more sense to him. And then Ambrose teaches him, no, there is actually a deeper way to read the scriptures that you just thought were crude rhetorically, right? That they weren't
so in every sense, he's approaching it intellectually then.
Mm-hmm. Right. But when he writes his confessions, which interestingly is a confession basically saying, you can trust that I'm actually Christian now, because he's back in Carthage, and they're like, we remember you when you were a Manichae. Are you really a Christian?
Yeah.
And he's like, yes. And the way he tells it is kind of a prayer. Like, I know you were there, God. I was looking for you all the time, but I couldn't find you. But I need to reread the confessions. It's been a while. Maybe I'm right, because the thing is, I read it a lot when I was younger, and I'm wondering now how it will strike me with more sort of life in my past. That will be interesting.
That will be interesting.
Yeah. But I know I'm very Augustinian no matter what, because Augustine shapes so much of the thinking in the West for centuries.
And now we have an Augustinian as Pope, which is interesting.
We do. Okay. So I've managed to pry out of you a little bit about your story. What would you like? Okay, so we've sold one copy so far. What would you like people to know about your book, and why should they buy it?
Oh, okay. It's a very quick, fun read. It is poetry, but it is very approachable poetry. I mean, there are some archaic words in there that I put there specifically because the story needed it for the sound. There's the extra dragon verses I just wanted to mention. I wrote those as like breadcrumbs when we were launching Act 1. And I was posting them on what was then Twitter. I think, was it Twitter? No, it was X. It was X then. But they're directly related to Draco Alchemicus. So if you want little hints and insights into kind of what it's about, talk about a feeling, right? So these are standalone stanzas. There's 12 of them. And they were inspired by Zé Núñez Fraga's illustrations of Act 1. So, that's what I wanted to say about those. But it's very easy. It's very easy to read, and yes, it could be a bookmark. Look how thin it is. It's great.
Okay, wait. So you're going to sell a fat bookmark.
Throw it in your purse or your backpack or whatever. Very, very easy to read. People hear poetry and they just immediately want to run in the opposite direction because they remember struggling through a lot of very difficult poetry from like the 19th century. If they studied it in high school or if they studied in college, and it was difficult to get through. Excuse me. I think it was worth it because of the beauty of it. And it's interesting histories about the writers too. But this isn't going to be tough to get through. I think and the stories are fun. I meant them to be fun. The Willow Switch is pure fun. Halloween Militant is pure fun. Dragon verses are fun. They're interesting. They're interesting little snapshots of what we were thinking when we were writing Act 1. There is another story called Bending Time. That one gets a little bit more. It's like it's halfway science fiction, I think. Somebody described it to me. It's not really sciencey at all, but it is about the concept of time and what exactly that means, our place in it. I don't want to give too much away, but
See,
it's
this
about how
is
God
the
sees it.
difficulty of talking to authors. They want you to read the book. You're like, well, but
Yeah,
why?
it's
Bending
because
time
it's
has a
because it's
great
time.
twist. It's bending. It is the right image there,
Yeah.
and it's got a lovely sting in it. You
It's one of the more overtly Christian. It's the more overtly Christian one that I wrote in this book, because I was trying to describe a concept somebody introduced me to a couple of years ago, which is that God is not constrained by time; He's outside of it.
mm-hmm.
So if you pray for somebody, your prayer can go backwards or forwards or stay in the same time period you're in, because God is omnipresent.
Mm.
He's everywhere, all times, all at once. He's there. He's always there, and he's eternal. And because I said, well, you can't pray for somebody who's already died, and she said, well, God's not constrained by time. What are you talking about? And she just mentioned it so matter of fact. They're like, what do you mean? What do you mean? So she described the concept to me, and once I understood it, I said, oh, I need to put this. I need to put this down in a poem. So I did. I wrote a short story called Bending Time, based on that concept,
That's
to try to
wonderful.
explain it to people.
So there we finally have our answer. It's like
Okay.
no, that there's theological claims that you can make clearer through stories.
Yes. Yeah, and it worked with the poem too. Now, when I started writing Bending Time, I was also experimenting with how to write. And this one was a fly by the seat of your pants one. I said, you know what, I'm going to write a stanza a day and just see where it takes me. But it started taking shape, which is also interesting considering the content of that poem, where there's a lot of ghosts in it. It's like it's almost like a ghost story.
Mm-hmm.
Almost like a ghost story. But if you read it, you'll understand why I say almost, why I qualify it. So yeah, it's a fun read. It's an easy read, and definitely very Halloween themed, because I love Halloween. I love it. I love Halloween.
Well, and we're bringing this to you at Midsummer so that you can spin the waning. Well, it's a John the Baptist thing, right? It's like that from the winter solstice to the summer solstice, the light increases. So that's from Christmas to Easter, and but then from John the Baptist's nativity through to the winter solstice, the light is decreasing. So it's a medieval image of that John, I decrease so that he increases, so that we're now at the turning of the turning of the year, that we now introduce your Wyrd poetry to turn us through.
So that kind of stuff is cool.
Through Halloween to Christmas, and then we will be rising in the light after that. So see, it was right. It was the right launch date. Although I think we were 24 hours after that, because you didn't want it on the 24th for reasons I don't remember why. There was a reason that you didn't want actually on the 24th, but it's actually a Midsummer launch.
I can't remember.
For a reason. Oh, well, there's a poem reason in there. Anyway, okay. Well, so everybody buy the book. You can. Well, there'll be a link to our website in the links down below. You can go to Amazon and get your copy and enjoy.
Please do.
Okay, good. Me and my comfort unicorn have some ice cream to eat. Good night, everybody.